Do you know what the biggest mistake we make when trying to identify an intelligent person is? We look for the one who talks, the fastest, the one who always has an answer ready, or the one who seems sure of everything, but reality is completely different. People with truly high intelligence rarely look like what we imagine. They aren't the loudest, nor are they the most confident. In fact, many of their most defining traits are exactly the ones the world usually misinterprets as weaknesses, quirks, or even problems. And the most curious part of all, you might be one of those people without even knowing it. Because real intelligence isn't measured by how much you know. It's measured by how you process the world. And that hides in details so small and everyday that they go completely unnoticed. Today on Mente Descoberta, we are going to look at the 10 signs that reveal an exceptionally intelligent mind, including the last one, which is the most important of all, and the one almost no one mentions. Sign number 1, they talk to themselves. Yes, out loud. And no, it's not a sign that something is wrong. From the outside, it might look strange. Socially, there's a bit of a stigma around murmuring to yourself while solving something. But in cognitive psychology, talking to yourself isn't a symptom of instability. It's a high-level mental processing tool. A joint study by the University of Wisconsin-Madison and the University of Pennsylvania showed that turning thoughts into words, what is called self-directed speech, significantly improves concentration and accuracy in complex tasks. Why? Because it activates working memory through the auditory channel, turning abstract ideas into something more concrete and manageable. Imagine the mind of a person with a high IQ as a server, processing dozens of operations simultaneously. When everything happens only on the inside, thoughts can collide, create internal noise, and cause blocks. By speaking out loud, the brain is forced to linearize that chaos, turning it into a logical and orderly structure. Researchers call this externalized thinking, and it not only improves memory but acts as a filter that helps quickly detect flaws in one's own reasoning. Physicist Richard Feynman, a Nobel Prize winner, developed his famous technique based on exactly this principle. Explaining complex concepts out loud to himself was his way of checking if he truly understood them. If you couldn't explain it out loud in a simple way, it meant you hadn't fully understood it yet. So, the next time you get caught talking to yourself, don't apologize. Your brain is simply working at full capacity. Sign number 2, they overthink everything. The world calls this overanalyzing. Psychology calls it metacognition. And there is a huge difference. People with high intelligence generally have a very active and highly connected prefrontal cortex. This means that when they face a decision, they don't just see option A or option B. They see the entire web of causes and consequences behind each choice. They replay conversations, analyze tone of voice, and look for patterns where others see nothing. Metacognition is the ability to observe and adjust your own thinking process. And that mechanism in high-performance minds never fully shuts down. The cost? Research in behavioral psychology shows that this tendency consumes a huge amount of mental energy and can lead to what is known as analysis paralysis. They might take 10 seconds to answer a simple question because in those 10 seconds their brain has already simulated thousands of possible scenarios. They aren't worried about something specific. They are running a full simulation to find the best possible outcome. What looks like indecision from the outside is a processor working at maximum speed on the inside. Sign number 3, they get bored quickly. A person with high intelligence can start a new project with brutal focus. They learn the rules before anyone else, master the subject in record time, and then lose interest. From the outside, it looks like a lack of commitment or laziness. But there is a very clear neurological explanation. It all has to do with the brain's reward system and how dopamine responds to intellectual challenges. For most people, repetitive and predictable tasks can be comforting, but for those with more complex cognitive systems, the required stimulation threshold is significantly higher. Once a task is solved, it stops demanding deep thought, and when the brain stops receiving that stimulus, it reduces the reward response. Boredom is not laziness. It's a biological sign that the brain is being underutilized. Researchers at the University of Toronto point out that people with high IQs have a constant need for cognitive novelty. They don't look for stability. They look for the next unsolved problem. That's why many highly intelligent people have discontinuous career paths or change fields several times throughout their lives. It's not inconsistency, it's the brain continuing to seek new territory to explore. Sign number 4, they constantly doubt themselves. Here is one of the most fascinating paradoxes in the psychology of intelligence. The least capable people usually tend to be the most confident, while the brightest minds often live in constant doubt about their own abilities. This isn't just a subjective impression. It is documented in one of the most studied phenomena in social psychology, the Dunning-Kruger effect. People with high IQs have a broader view of knowledge, and the more they know, the more clearly they perceive the immensity of what they still don't know. Their intelligence functions like a high-precision lens, but instead of focusing only on their achievements, that lens constantly illuminates the gaps in their own reasoning, the inconsistencies, and the zones of uncertainty. Imposter syndrome appears very frequently in this group, not because they lack ability, but because their standards of intellectual rigor are so high that what they accomplish seems ordinary to them. Their brain processes it so fast that they assume anyone else could have done the same. Do you identify with this? Then take note. That doubt is not a sign that you are not enough. It is a sign that you are conscious enough to understand the true scale of knowledge. Sign number 5, they are more active at night. Popular culture celebrates waking up early as a synonym for discipline and success, but evolutionary psychology has a very different perspective on intelligent people who become night owls. A study by Satoshi Kanazawa at the London School of Economics found a significant statistical correlation between higher IQ and a preference for going to bed later. The explanation points to the concept of evolutionary novelty. Our ancestors were programmed to wake up with the sunlight. Choosing to stay awake in the early hours of the morning to think or create goes against that original instinct and requires a higher level of cognitive adaptation. But there is another, equally important factor: silence. For a mind that is highly sensitive to stimulation, the night is frequently the only time when the cortex can move freely without external interference. That's when the subconscious begins to connect scattered ideas that, during the day, couldn't find room to meet. Very intelligent people don't stay awake until 3 in the morning watching mindless content. They stay awake because it's the only time their brain can finally operate without noise. Sign number 6, they are extremely sensitive to noise. Has the ticking of a clock ever felt unbearable to you while everyone else didn't even notice it? Does the sound of someone chewing or typing non-stop cause you an almost physical irritation? For you, people with high intelligence, this isn't exaggeration or oversensitivity. It's a specific neurological characteristic. Researchers at Northwestern University studied a phenomenon called sensory gating or sensory filtering. Normally, the brain has a system that filters and discards irrelevant sensory information from the environment. However, in many highly intelligent and creative people, that filter is less strict than usual. Their brain doesn't ignore the stimuli around them. It processes all of them. This comes with an obvious cost: fatigue, sensory overload, and difficulty concentrating in chaotic environments. But it also brings a huge advantage: the ability to detect details, errors, or patterns that others simply miss. It's not that they are difficult or demanding. It's that they have a receptor that is too powerful for a world that is too noisy. Sign number 7. They procrastinate in a very specific way. Procrastination has a very bad reputation, but not all. Procrastination is equal. Researchers at the University of East Calgary established a key distinction between passive procrastination, which is related to avoidance and lack of motivation, and active procrastination, which is something completely different. Leonardo da Vinci took about 16 years to finish the Mona Lisa, not because he was lazy, but because throughout the process, he delved into investigations about optics, anatomy, and the physics of light, which ended up transforming a simple portrait into a timeless masterpiece. His delay was not a flaw, it was incubation. Highly intelligent people frequently wait until the last moment to act for two main reasons. First, their brain needs the pressure of time to generate enough adrenaline and enter a state of flow. And second, and most importantly, the incubation effect. Even when they are apparently doing something else, their subconscious keeps processing the problem. They are waiting for the solution to be cooked enough before executing it. They aren't delaying the work, they are delaying the execution until the solution is practically complete in their minds. Sign number 8. They have a very selective memory and forget everyday things. There are people who can remember thousands of decimal places of pi, but don't know where they left their keys 5 minutes ago. This contradiction is not a flaw or a careless mistake. It is the result of a brutal optimization of the brain. The neuroscience of learning shows that the brain has a limited processing capacity, and the brain of people with high intelligence usually prioritizes information automatically and almost ruthlessly. Everyday, repetitive details that have no analytical value, like where you left an object, what was on the grocery list, or the name of the waiter, are classified as low-relevance data and discarded quickly. In contrast, they retain with great precision information that is structured, logical, or that connects with something they already know. They don't forget because their memory is weak. They forget because their brain is reserving space and resources for more important structures. It's a resource management system, and it's working exactly as it should. Sign number 9. They feel emotions with an unusual intensity. There is a widespread stereotype that portrays highly intelligent people as cold, distant, and lacking empathy. Science says exactly the opposite. The theory of overexcitabilities by psychologist Kazimierz Dabrowski shows that individuals with high intellectual potential tend to respond more intensely to emotional stimuli. Their nervous system is more sensitive. They don't just think deeply, they also feel deeply. A sad story, a piece of music, or a social injustice can affect them in a way that seems disproportionate to those around them. And their capacity for analysis also allows them to detect pain or dishonesty in others with an ease that sometimes overwhelms them, leading them to withdraw to protect themselves from emotional overload. Intellectual intelligence and emotional sensitivity are not two separate lines. In the most complex minds, they fuse, creating an extraordinarily rich inner world, sometimes difficult to inhabit, but with a depth that very few ever come to understand. Sign number 10. They have a curiosity that has no end. And we come to the most important sign, the one that defines real intelligence better than any test or score. Curiosity. In psychology, this trait has a technical name, need for cognition. And in people with a high IQ, it never shuts off. They are never fully satisfied with the surface answer. They always want to know the why of the why and the why of that why as well. That curiosity functions like an engine that doesn't stop. It leads them to read books that have nothing to do with their work, to explore completely new fields, and to question beliefs that have gone unrevised for centuries. Albert Einstein once said, "I have no special talent. I am only passionately curious." It was a humble way of putting it, but it reveals something fundamental. Talent without curiosity burns out. Intelligence without wonder becomes sterile. A truly intelligent mind never sees itself as someone who already knows everything. It retains the capacity for wonder of a child in front of the immensity of the universe. For it, knowledge is not a destination, it's a path that never ends. If you've made it this far, if you've spent all this time exploring the corners of your own mind, that is already a sign in itself. Only minds that genuinely need to understand have the patience to ask the question, who am I really? Real intelligence isn't in the numbers of a test. It's in the depth with which you perceive the world, in the ability to tolerate uncertainty, and in a curiosity that never gives up. Having a very active mind is sometimes like carrying a sensor that is too precise in a world full of noise. It brings extraordinary advantages and also burdens that not everyone can understand. So, the next time you feel like you overthink things, that you are too sensitive, or that you simply operate on a different frequency than everyone else, smile. Because that might be exactly what makes you special. Which of these signs do you recognize in yourself? Tell us in the comments. You might find people there who function exactly like you. And if this video felt like someone was reading your mind, subscribe to Mente Descoberta and share it with someone who needs to hear it today.